Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Liam, the Prove It Guy, author of Limitation Is A Mirage. In this podcast, I will be sharing with you actionable tips, routines, and insights that I have gathered over 20 years of extensive study with masters, experts, and world-class performers. My hope with this podcast is to save you time, money, and frustration, helping you fast-track your way to mastery. Welcome to this bonus episode of the Limitation Is A Mirage podcast. On this episode, I have my good friend Joel M. He is an internet sensation. He took over TikTok with nearly 5 million followers. He's been all over social media doing magic, working for different companies, doing live stage shows, and just really living the dream as a magician. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation. We get into a few things about how he got to where he is, how he deals with hate, how he deals with his routine so that he can actually produce the best content ever. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Joe. We're both approachable. Have fun, and I will speak to you on the next podcast. Hey guys, welcome to this bonus episode of the Limitation Is A Mirage podcast. I am here with Joel M, magician extraordinaire, and Joel's going to give you a brief intro into who he is, because I probably will not do it justice. So, Joel, shout away there. What do you get up to? Who are you? What's going on?
Well, firstly, I believe you would have done it justice, Liam. But I think, well, if you had to describe me, I guess I'm a magician and mix that with social media influencer, despite the negative connotations of those words. And you kind of get me. That's what I am pushing myself as at the moment. There's a couple of other things that have popped up along the way, but magician, and I post on social. That's what I do.
Social media magician. I think it's worth touching on the fact that social media influencers have such a bad name, but it's because a lot of them are really annoying. Whereas,
yes,
like you just said there, you are you as a person. So whenever, like, I've known you for a long time now, like 5-7 years.
Years now, years.
I'm very bad at remembering how many years I've known people. But
dude, I forget what
age I am. You are on and off. Sorry,
yeah, I forget what age I am all the time, so no pressure there. But dude, yeah, it's been a while. I suppose the first time, it would have been probably some sort of Ulster Society of Magicians thing we would have linked.
No, it was the Ulster Society of Rod Hog meeting I remember the first meeting. It was in the a hotel in Cookstown, but I don't remember when it was. Gotcha. Rod just was like, here, there's two guys that are quite good. Do you want to meet up with them and chat? So I like that sort of I like a personal magic jam rather than the big over the top meetups where everybody's competing, because I think it's why we continue to talk, because none of us were there competing against each other or trying to outdo each other or trying to be what I think is really important as a magician. You're a magician, but also a real life human person who can have other conversations. Whereas
exactly. Well, I mean, what I find in terms of my favorite magicians, in terms of people I actually know, is most of the time they don't really talk about magic that much, which that sounds ridiculous. Of course that's there and that links the people together. There's that sort of understanding. But most of my best friends, we can talk about magic all day long, but there's other interests outside of that, and they're people first, and that's important. Whereas, well, actually what illustrates it really well is, for the first time ever, I went to a proper magic convention outside of Northern Ireland this year, which was Blackpool Magic Convention. For those of you who don't know what that is, imagine every magician in the universe shoved into a room. And I had heard for years, like, dude, you're going to be up to 4 a.m. jamming magic, this and that. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be magic central. When I got there, that wasn't the experience I got at all. It was just friends hanging out, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that was my experience at Blackpool as well. When I went over, I just met up the guys that I talk mostly online with, and then we just jammed about what we do. But I think that's what makes you a really good magician, is you're not just coming at magic as a magician, you're coming at it from your day-to-day life and everything. So I suppose we sort of just went straight into chats. This is the problem with chatting with people that I'm friendly with, and I know.
This is it.
For people watching, you are a TikTok sensation. Would that be the easiest way to describe you?
That's what they tell me. I don't know. It's happened pretty fast, to be honest, because for anyone who knows me in real life, I totally got into social media by accident. It wasn't a planned thing whatsoever. If you had asked me a couple of years ago what I'd be doing, it would be just live shows and nothing else. I had no intention of going into social. Really, it was so much of an accident that it's actually mad that it's continued on this long. But yeah, TikTok in particular is the big platform. There are the other ones, but at the moment, the ROI is so good on TikTok that I really hammered down on that. Although who knows where it'll be in a year, it could be something completely different again.
Yeah, well, I noticed, like, I always point people towards you when they asked about social media, because people believe that you just become an overnight success. Like, you just got a wee video and you fluked it, then you became one of TikTok's top rated people. And I'm like, that guy works a lot. Like, you would be like me. Behind the scenes, we're working 100 mile an hour, and then it looks like all we do is a few wee bits to camera, and people go, "What do you do with the rest of your time?" And you're like, plan,
Exactly.
practice.
Well, this is it. It's plan and practice, and for me as well, I think. See, it's interesting. I think particularly when you're a magician, I find from just speaking to other content creators, magicians, it's extra tricky whenever you're a magician for content creation, because not only do you have to,
fun.
yeah, it's really because you're coming up with the tricks, but then you have to present them in the right way, and what works in real life, what we already know as magicians, doesn't work on a camera. So there's a whole new skill set there, and of course you're trying not to expose the method. There's lots of things that go into it, but I mean, it's like anything, right? You just take it in small chunks and you build and build and build, and eventually it happens. But you're right, people do see it as an overnight success. And although in some ways I've done quite a lot of things I like to do relatively young, it's a lot of back end work that people don't see. You know yourself, it's the tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, what people are seeing is nothing compared to what you're actually doing then and there, and what you've done to create. Like, some of your videos are just incredible. Like, when people watch them, I used to just get messages all the time. Have you seen that guy Joel? How did he do that? I'm like, magic.
Actually, I'm so sorry.
I'm like, it's always magic. But what has it been like for you to go from, like, because I know whenever I did magic, I got recognized in a few places, but normally it's by people going, I was at a wedding that you did like 3 years ago, and you're like,
yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, that's what I want. I want that. I want people to go. I don't want people to go, I saw a magician who did a trick and it was good, and I go, what was the name of him? And they go, I don't know. I want them to go, you're the prove it guy. You're the guy that did X, Y, and Z. I love that. Mm-hmm. But you must get that on a massive level, like, compared to the odd
you know, Liam, it's funny. The really, really big growth for me happened during lockdown. So, and there was a real advantage to that. And the big advantage was none of it was able to, I don't think it would have, but none of it was able to go to my head, because I was just locked in the house. There was no one to give me validation and no one to recognize me. The entire way through lockdown, I didn't get spotted once because I just wasn't out of the house. We're shielding family members and stuff. It's a different story now that we're out again. I used to get, to be fair, I was getting quite a lot of recognition just in Northern Ireland around the 400,000 follower mark when I was on TikTok, which was probably at the start of this year. And that was maybe every other time I would go out, I would get spotted by someone or something, maybe, but, and it's not, I'm not a, look at me, because I don't think of being a TikTok magician as being a big thing at all. Please hear me on that. But it is weird now, because you would go out and it could be 5 or 6 times in a 30-minute walk around Belfast. You get stopped by people, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it is quite frequent. What's funny is it's got to the point now where you can look at a group of people approaching, and I can make pretty much a guess in my head as to whether I'm going to get, it's just, you can tell by the age demographic. And most of the time they, and to be fair, actually, most kids, it's mad the confidence they have. Because I remember whenever I was, suppose, 11 to 15, I wouldn't have dared have gone up to someone that I followed on the internet and said hello. I'd been far too nervous. But these kids plunder on up and they're like, it's the magic guy, it's Joel. And I'm like, oh my goodness, hello. And of course, you don't know what to do now, because you don't know, can you get a photo? You can't have it's strange because the social distancing.
Distance photos, one selfie each, and just stick it together at the end.
This is actually what we've ended up doing. I've ended up saying, hey, listen, I'll take my phone and I'll take a photo, and the guys will be in the background, and I'll take a selfie, and then I'll just airdrop it across type thing, because you don't want to be touching you just don't want any excuse for anything to get out about you misconducting. So, because it's not worth it,
Yeah. So whenever you find these young kids and do they want to find out how to do what you do, and then do they be disappointed when you say work, like that's a lot of work?
Yeah, to be fair, I find that most people aren't so curious about how to do it. They just want the kind of cloud. Most of the time it goes like this. It says, "Hey, are you Joel from TikTok?" I'll go, "Yes, absolutely. I'll do my introductions." And then it'll be, "Can you do a trick?" And at the moment, I'll go one way or another depending on the situation. Maybe I'll do something, maybe I won't if I'm in a rush. Most of the time I will. Then the next question is always, "Can I get a photo?" And the last question is always, "Can you follow me back on TikTok?" That's the third every time. And of course, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter to me, absolutely. But very, very rarely do you ever get a question about how do you do that. I've had that maybe once out of all of the interactions once, and that was just the other day in Starbucks. There was a group of kids who asked, which was, it's interesting. It kind of, maybe that's just not on their minds. I don't know.
I think it's changed now. Like you're saying, the kids are more open to come up. I would have been the same if I had saw someone. I was older than YouTube and stuff, so when I was younger, if I saw footballers or something, I would just stare at them and like back away. Like we had a gladiator hunter come to the school, and we were all
Yes.
like, but nobody spoke to him. It must have been well weird for him because he would have just left going 500 students just stared at me and nobody spoke.
Yes.
But now it's just so normal to write you a comment or like people don't feel like they're watching you. They feel like you're
No.
performing for them, like it's a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's strange because there's that sense of, because I'm not like a movie star who's inaccessible or a
Not yet.
musician, people, well, thanks. There is an element of people, I do put so much, or I put what people perceive as most of my life online, even though I put out a very tiny, tiny fraction of what I do online. So when people approach you, they feel like they know you. And of
Yeah.
course, they do a bit, but and that's kind of expected to be reciprocated. And of course, it's, yeah, I absolutely give everyone the time. I love to have a chat. If there happen to be any people who know me from TikTok, please do come up to me in real life because I love to have a chat and
Yeah.
meet people. I actually really, really enjoy it. I think you spend so much time trying to get people to care and watch that when people do, it's like a nice thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, look, I imagine it's probably different in different countries as well, but here in Northern Ireland, everyone's pretty bubbly and happy to pounce on up and say hello.
A question I wanted to ask, I think we've talked about this before, but it'd be good for listeners and stuff. How did you end up being a magician? Because that's something I get asked all the time. They'd be like, "You do magic? How did you? How what?" So,
Dude, I feel,
how
how
did that
many
come
times
about?
have we been asked that question? It's the big one, right? I mean, and fair enough, it is a strange old thing. I don't actually think I mean, I'll ask you this off camera because I'm sure, we can have that chat. I don't even know how you managed to get into magic, but there's always, I think people expect it to be a big, massive, like origin
Yeah.
story, which, what's interesting is the story and the way I got into it is quite sweet and it is true. It was as simple as, my grandfather is a big Paul Daniels fan. And so when we were in America on holiday together, there was a shop called Magic Makers. And he encouraged me to go into the shop to have a look. And I believe one of the tricks the guy was doing was a little ball levitating above his hand. And I couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. And somehow sold my poor grandfather and buy me two tricks. One was a pen through banknote, and one was a version of the rising card out of the deck. Both of which I went back to the hotel room and learned. And that was kind of it. After that, I think the usual thing happened of Magic DVDs and Marvin's Magic kits and stuff were bought, but I just never really fell out of it. I think what it was for me is I got into it so young that it wasn't like a seek for attention or anything. I remember distinctively as a kid, I was always really annoyed when I couldn't figure out how something was done. And even still now, if I see somebody who's doing something, or maybe has something that I haven't managed to achieve, it messes with me to where I need to break it down and figure out. So I always loved the idea of learning the secret, learning the method, and then showing that to someone else and being like, and straight away, I still struggle with this. I really struggle not to tell people how the tricks are done because for me, that's actually more interesting sometimes than the
Yeah.
magic aspect of it. I've had to withhold that as being part of a magician, of course. So that was what got me into it, was just the sheer what on earth is happening, And of course, it's all very disappointing when you realize how most of the magic actually works.
Yeah. Most people ask me as well, and it's usually the same sort of story. I saw somebody do a trick, and my brain went, "What? I need to know how that works." Like whenever
Exactly.
It's funny that you said that your story is sweet and true because you talked about it was your granddad that got you into it. And the fact that you said it's sweet and true, because whenever I used to perform at the very start, like I started performing at 21, and I always opened with this routine about my granddad teaching me a magic trick and him fooling me for years and blah, 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 blah. And then like my family would be like, your granddad didn't do magic. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a good story.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is it. Do you know, the thing is, it's a true story, but I was 6 years old, so I can't remember it perfectly. I'm kind of grabbing fragments from what parents have told me. I do remember the trip, and I do remember the tricks, and they're still about somewhere. I still have the cards from the Rising Dead. I still have that stuff, and it's a true story. Sometimes I wish I could go back like 3 years and create some incredible, stupidly untrue story and just roll with that instead. But you know, it's nice to keep it honest, I think, as well.
Yeah, well, I didn't believe that at the time. I was like, I'm already lying about everything else I'm doing. I may as well lie about the origin of how I got there. And it just like for the reason I did it was it just pulled the audience in when I talk about my wee granddad and what I did, and what I was doing was a disappearing bottle, and I did it atrociously. So people like I kept doing it until someone would say, you're just doing, like they would just tell me what I'm doing, and then I would go, oh, that's crap, and then I would do the magic bit. But it just fitted so well with my nice wee granddad story and then what I was doing. So that sort of leads me to like whatever you were saying there, you love to see a trick and then learn a trick and find out how it's done, but you left out the bit that you then make everything I've seen you do, you make it your own. So it's not like I've never seen you, we've met up a few times and I've watched your videos and stuff. I've never seen you do just a step-by-step that somebody else is doing. Normally you do something to make it yours. So where does your creative process come from?
Well, the first thing I would say is that if you're looking to make something your own, you have to actually be something outside of magic first. So and I don't mean that in a, you gotta be, for real, it's good to have other, not necessarily talents, but other avenues where you can pull creativity from. So the first thing I'll say is absolutely, I have other really clever friends and other clever people that I hang about with who are really, you know, they're far smarter than me in other ways, and I take from that, which is great. I mean, you'll know there's loads I can learn from you, and there's loads I can learn from my other magic mates, but even outside of magic as well. For me, what I think makes maybe my video, say we're just talking about video and not even on stage, what makes it even feel unique is that there shouldn't be anybody else on planet Earth that has the same personality as me or tells the same jokes. And that's something I've had to learn. I remember not even that long ago, maybe 4 years, having trouble not just copying other magicians and other performers that I really liked. And I think all of us go through that stage at some point where we're just emulating people we like. But if you can work on yourself enough and work out what you like and what makes you laugh, and then find your personality, it's quite easy then to take a magic trick. I never read instructions for magic tricks ever. I never read the pattern because it's clipping your wings to do that. It's instantly just going, all right, what do I have to do? And obviously at the start, when you're beginning as a magician, you have to have the basic knowledge. But once you've got that, you can then take all sorts of ideas and cram them in. Of course, that's not to say that there aren't tricks that I've done. I know we're both on the same page. I don't just do original tricks. Like there's definitely tricks that I've taken. But it's the way you do it, which is, I know what you mean. Because there's a million ways to do the same trick, which is why it surprises me whenever people do it just by the book all the time. Because it's more fun to do it your own way. For sure, more fun.
I think what you're saying there is you start off as a magician, you start off learning all these things, you read the pattern, but once you become confident in your ability, and like, I know what happened to me, then I started to see people react, and I thought, I'm actually good at this. This is, and then whenever you do magic for your friends, I remember doing a trick for a friend, and he just went, but why did you put on that voice, and why did you do it like that? And I was like, what? Dude. And what I had realized was I had watched the DVD so much that I just went into like that guy's mode. So then I realized I need to become my own stuff. It's why I added the martial arts things where this vagabond thing came out of. I added all that in. So that's what I get from that, is you're saying that yes, it's good to do the follow the pattern, do the stuff to get your confidence. But once you get that, it's about becoming your own person. So it brings us back to earlier where you said you are who you are on camera and off. So
Yeah, well,
I really just love that.
And even from let's say this is from a purely like selfish point of view, say you just want to get gigs or you want to like get internet famous, people are not buying into the tricks and they're not buying into what you're doing. I mean, a little bit, of course, but the reason that some of the top magicians of the world are the top magicians of the world, it's the character, it's the persona. It's anyone could step in and do any number one or any of the tricks that Chris Angel or Copperfield or Blaine do. You could learn to do it. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same way. And that's for me as well. I couldn't do any of that stuff. You have to make it your own. I just, it's more fun as well. And you're never really going to enjoy yourself, I don't think, performing unless you're doing it authentically the way you like to. And just to say as well, that's always going to change over time. Like what you're doing now, it guarantee in 5 years is going to look 10 times different. Same for me as well. And it should always be changing because you don't want to get bored, but you as you change as a person, your act and the material you do will change as well. That's happened for me anyway. I can always tell what sort of headspace I was in at any given time by looking back at shows and what music choice I used during the show. For me, that always illustrates what sort of phase I was in, whether it was heavy rock or K-pop. Guilty.
I don't even know what K-pop is.
I don't either. I just thought it'd be a nice contrast.
People I would be the same. I can look back at all the shows, the scripts for my shows, and the layout and bullet points for the show, and go, "Oh, that was when you were really into this, and this is when you were really into that," and that's important because that shows your personality is within your shows as you go, rather than just, "Oh, that was when I watched this DVD, and watched when I bought that book," and so on and so forth.
There's moments that are just, you're going to look back, and I look back, and they're just glaringly not you. I literally had this experience today where I was standing in IKEA, and I don't know what went through my head, but I was just reminded of this one specific part from a show I did 4 years ago, and I just was sitting there cringing up my head. I was like, oh, that wasn't me. It was a great trick, and it was an amazing moment, but not me at all. I would never do it now. Maybe in 20 years I'll do it again. I don't know, but but that's
people
good.
in IKEA were looking at you thinking. People in IKEA looking at you thinking, why does he really hate this chair? And you standing beside it, cringing, like a melting wizard.
Exactly.
Just since we were talking there about you adding your personality and you put a lot of yourself out there, it's worth talking about the love and the hate that you get online. So we talked about the love and meeting people, but you must get hate online. I know we get hate in person, so online it must be like, what is it like for you that way?
Man, 100%. But listen, I think this is why I always advise people who are starting social or any sort of career where you're putting yourself out there, is you have to know you really like it, and you have to know you really do believe in what you're doing, because at every corner there's going to be people who are going to try and bring you down with them. I'm a big subscriber to looking through note cards every morning of little, like, whether it's quotes or like messages for yourself to live your day, and 5 or 10 in this are all about dealing with hate comments and stuff, because it doesn't come naturally to me to not feel them. I think anyone who says they don't get affected by hate comments, maybe it's just more time, but for me, I've never met anyone that's authentically says that. It does bother people. You can bet if Kim Kardashian looked through her Instagram, no matter how rich and famous you get, it hurts you a little bit, but there's two kind of sayings that I like to remember that have really, really helped me when it comes to dealing with haters. And trust me, I get a lot of hate. Actually, I get way more on Instagram than I do on TikTok for some reason. I think
Instagram people think they're smarter and more sophisticated than, like, TikTok to me seems to be people that just want to be entertained and they just love being in there, where Instagram
I couldn't believe it. I started posting on Instagram when Instagram Reels launched, and I'm always like, for a phase I was like, I am not posting here again, because the comments were ruthless, man. But part of me, I've now learned to enjoy it a little bit as well, use it as fuel. But on TikTok, everyone seems so nice. You might get the odd comment which tries to expose a trick, but apart from that, that's it. But anyway, the two things that I swear by that really help me, and maybe they'll help someone who's posting online as well. The first one, you'll have heard this a million times. Lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. You've probably heard that before. And it's such a like an Instagram caption saying, but it's so true. And when you actually try and live it, but that applies to lots of stuff outside of just hate comments. And the other one, this is so simple as well, is source not story. So anytime I listen or read a comment that's coming from anyone, you just gotta think to yourself, all right, who is this coming from? Number one, does it matter? Does their approval, is it like required for my success? 99.999 times that's not the case, so that's fine. Then also, most of the time when someone's leaving a hate comment, it says more about that person than it does about your own stuff. Hey, sometimes hate comments do like touch home because maybe they're true. Maybe a video that you put out wasn't great, but if someone has the time in their day to go out to put a hate comment on, they're obviously not in a great place either. And yeah, listen, that's quite sad. I don't ever recall ever, and this is no yippee for me, but I bet you it's the same thing for you, Liam. I've never left a hate comment on anyone's posts ever. If I'm hating on something, I'll do it in my head, go, better not do that, and then move on. There's just no, unless it's constructive criticism, and there's a big difference between the two.
That's what I was going to say. I've never left a hate comment, but if it was, like, say, for example, if you posted a video and I thought I had something constructive to add, I would just ring you and say, I watched your video and I think it would be better if you did this because of X, Y, and Z. But
dude,
like the hater thing, whenever I'm talking to clients, especially the ones that I'm mentoring or that want to get more social media active, like I do a lot on social media. I've done podcasts like daily for a year. I've done videos all the time, and I tell people I don't care what people think of me, and it's true. If people can get something from it and enjoy it, brilliant. But if they don't like me, I don't give a shit. It doesn't affect me. But I try to take the praise and the hate as the same.
Yes.
Because if I start to get connected to the praise and it doesn't come, it's going to be bad. If I get connected to the hate and that, like a lot of the time, people are hating on you. Like you said, it seems like you give your entire life out to social media, and same as myself. But there's so much. Like imagine if someone videoed you actually designing your routine. They'd be like, your life is so boring. Like,
if someone filmed my day today, they would be devastated at what my day looks like. It is so painfully boring. They wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's amazing for me. I get to choose what I do each day. It's lots of fun. But for the average person, they'd be like, oh, he literally sits at a desk for why is he doing that? I thought he did magic all day long, you know.
I would love people to be able to see in my brain when I'm coming up with a new program or a new routine or a new show or whatever it is, because I might be sitting dead still looking into the distance, but in my head it's like there's all this madness going on. But if you were to watch it, you'd go, that guy he's so boring. But I know internally, and then that's why you're able to create.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, hilariously as well, I actually haven't spoken to you about this, but when people meet me, I'm really charismatic, and I try to be quite charming, and that's something you can learn. That's not something that you're born with, although some people are. Yeah. But when most of my day looks like hanging out with myself. I'm not a big people person to where I'm surrounded by groups all the time, which you would think the big showbiz performer would be. But I'm not at all. So my day does typically look like, at least for the first 7 hours of every day, it's me and myself. That's it. And that's just the way I like it.
You have a routine to your morning, don't you? You actually, I teach people all the time that one of the ways to get better in whatever you want to do is to start creating some sort of routines. But we've talked about it a few times because you've become a bit of a beefcake like myself.
I'm not quite there yet, but you know what? One day, the difference is your strength's actually functional. It's not just beach body. That's I wouldn't cross you ever in my life.
I'm too nice anyway. But do you want to give a wee rundown off your? Because again, I love when I talk to people that do like incredible things like yourself. People go, God, they must have a crazy routine, and then your routine is structured towards just making you healthier in general.
Yeah.
So
it's simple. It should be simple. One big thing that I suppose I've learned and I've actually executed on, which has made success come a lot faster and more consistently, is just to do less. So it's to do less in your day rather than more, but do the right things every single day. So my day, and this does change now and again depending on what I'm trying to do at any given time, but it typically is wake up, at the same time each day, depending on what my sleep cycle is. But it usually is around 7 a.m. That tends to be when I get up. First thing is chug down a glass of water, not sparkling water right in the morning, because that just sets you off to a bad start if you try and chug sparkling water first thing. So I get the water in, then I go out the back, jump rope for 15 minutes, into the shower. That would be when I would usually have coffee, which I just stopped. So that's gutting at the minute. So then it's come down, sit at the desk. I then, by the way, during this, I don't have my phone on me in the mornings. The only thing I use it for is to set the timer for my jump rope, but it's still on airplane while that happens. I don't sleep with my phone near my bed or anything, because that's just a big distraction. I have a Kindle instead. So I do that. Then I would come in here. I still don't check my phone, because I know if I check my phone, I'll see how my post did from the day before. And I don't want that to sway me either way on how the day goes.
Yeah.
Then it's usually an hour of, I'm sure, this is like a fancy, no need way to say it, but Kaizen. So learning and improving for 1 hour every day, whether that's me learning more about content creation or copywriting or whatever it happens to be at any given time. That's my 1 hour every day. And that's the only thing in the routine that's non-negotiable. That has to happen every single day, because I'm a big believer in that if you just place one brick every single day and just get a little bit better each day, eventually, you're going to be unrecognizable in, down the line. So I do that. And then after that, it's into work. So that's when the phone goes on. I have a look at how the posts have done. I'll usually have planned out what videos to film the day before. But before I film, I edit my posts for the day. They're all sitting ready. I go film. And then, to be honest, most of my work usually that absolutely has to be done is done by about 2 p.m. And there's usually a time in the afternoon where if I'm going to take chill time, that would be where it happens. Most of the time, there's little bits and bobs which I'll find to do. But sometimes it is just, that's where gym will go in 3 times a week. But it could be hang out with friends, could be see my girlfriend of 7 years. That has to happen at some time. And the reason that happens in the afternoon is because in the evening at the minute, I'm usually live streaming. So, and I don't plan to do that forever. But at the moment, that's, especially over lockdown, that was a good way of making revenue. Yeah. So, yeah. And then that's it. And, bedtime is still the one thing that I'm not as good at. I struggle to wind down, and I'm still figuring out how to do that.
Creatives have always a difficult bedtime. It's the one thing I talk about. People ask me, do I ever feel anything? And I'd be like, I feel at going to bed at a reasonable time every day of the week. Like, So I feel daily on the same thing. But I just love the fact that, like, if you close your eyes, you could be talking to anyone in any successful industry with your actual routine. Your routine is designed to make you better. It could be talking about magic. It could be talking about physical, mental. Doesn't matter what it is. You could be a CEO. You could be a TV star. Doesn't matter. You're having a routine like that it sounds very simple, but if people were watching this now and they don't have a routine and they just tried to mimic yours, a week into it, they would go, this is a lot of stuff. 7 to 2, like that's a whole day. And then I love that you call what you do work, because it is work. A lot of people think, sure, social media people just post and I'll post on social media, but you actually plan it out. You think about what you're doing, who it's aimed for, where you want it to go, what you want it to do. So again, that sort of brings me into the social media thing. Was there ever a time where you felt you were completely failing, or was there ever a time where something seemed like a failure and it actually turned out to be a really good thing for you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, firstly, by the way, I'm constantly feeling like I need to move forward, but I think that's a good thing. That's just ever improving. Not necessarily that I'm a failure, but I'm not quite where I want to be yet. But there was one big one, and it was actually hilarious. Do you know, there were 2, and it's funny because throughout my life, up to when I was in my late teens to about 20, I'm really lucky. I didn't, and I guess unlucky in some ways, in that I never really dealt with failure, because I always did pretty good. And I don't mean that, and look at me, I was a really good student, and the things I wasn't good at, I just didn't really do. So I wasn't good at sports, so I just didn't really do them. I was able to push them out of the way, which meant I didn't have to deal with failure for a long time. What that did mean is whenever I did run into it, it hurt a lot more than I was expecting. So I had always been win-win, and I was good grades in school, and then suddenly what came up for me was quite a big opportunity for a TV show, which will remain unnamed, but I was to take part in this TV show, which had a big audition process, and it had been built up to me that it was going to be this great thing, could have been a life-changing event. I was really excited, and didn't work out. It was just cut at the last second, and I was left like, well, what? So I don't always get it my way. Well, what's going on? Who do I call? It was that really, and like so much so that I remember coming back to my hotel room. That I was maybe 19 years old to 20. I can't remember exactly. And I was devastated. It made my head spin. I just could not understand how I'd gone for something and it hadn't worked out for me. Mainly because I just hadn't pushed myself out there that much before. I just hadn't been used to failure. Or if they were failures, I was able always to just write them off as, I didn't really try it that hard, or blah, blah, blah. But I'd really put effort into this and it just hadn't worked out. And it was the best thing that ever happened. Let me tell you, I honestly, to the point now where whenever I do fail at something, I'm so pumped, and not in a like, oh, I love failure, but like usually whenever you fail at something, there's always a big lesson in there, and you just go, all right, I'm not going to do that again in that way. Or I'm just going to keep chipping away until it does work. It goes one of two ways.
Yeah.
But I just never had to do that before. So I think from that point, that's when things started to get moving a little bit more. When you get into social media, you learn that really quick. People seem to think that you post one video overnight, you go viral, and that can happen. But good luck the next day when you post another one, and that hurts whenever it doesn't work again the next day. And the people that do really well on social are the people who just keep going, even on the days where the videos didn't do well, and they just keep chipping away, and before you know it, you're where you got to be.
Yeah, I remember talking to people about that, and I was saying that I never even heard of TikTok till we talked, and you were like, are you on TikTok? And I was like, what's a TikTok?
Yeah.
And then whenever we did it, whenever I deleted all my social media at the end of last year just for a break, and because I wanted to revamp everything, and I was like, I'll go on TikTok whilst just for something to mess about with. And I remember you had talked about how like you could just get a viral video out of nowhere and then nothing, and I was like, all right, same as everywhere. But I got a video that like within a day had 66,000 views, and I was like, where did that come from? Yeah, and then I was like, next video, 12.
Yeah,
like,
and let me tell you, it's the most frustrating thing, and it still happens. It still happens every single day, and that's just the way it is. I think eventually it will start to even out. But I remember my first experience was I had a video with 8,000 views on TikTok, and that was my first kind of video that did well on TikTok, and I was like, holy moly, do I call LA? Do they call me? What happens? And I couldn't believe it. And then the next one, 20 views. I'm like, oh. But I think because I was one of the only magicians on the app, I was lucky to have the foresight. I was like, okay, listen, all of the guys who are on here doing their thing already, they're not that much better than me. So I could give it a good shot. So I just kept posting on the side with my other stuff, and it kind of happened after a while. But it is a good thing to learn that it means you can test, right? So when you put something out, it does well. You can then learn about that video, what did well in it, and take those little features and try and throw them into your next set of videos. And you're never guaranteed anything. That's the other thing I try to tell people on social is don't get upset when a post doesn't do well, because they don't owe you anything, you know. For all you know, you could wake up and your account is deleted tomorrow. That's a real thing that happens to people. So just be grateful that you keep getting a shot at it.
Yeah, I think it's funny that whenever people do something that's useful on social media, and then like some of my clients and you would be like, you did a good video a week ago, but the next week of videos has just been a really shit version of what you just did.
Yeah.
Just because that worked doesn't mean it's going to work the whole time. It's going to distract. No. Just put out what you are happy putting out and what you want. Like try to hit what your audience are after, but don't spend your whole time trying to win likes and win views and all that stuff, because
that's so true. I've tried to, on TikTok, the strategy I went for during lockdown, which really helped me, was for every one post that I posted that was like a post I wanted to post for me that I enjoyed putting out, I would try to post at least another one that I knew was the sort of thing people would want to see, because that initially got me good traction in, and it got the people in, it hooked them, and then they could see my good stuff. And still now I do that a little bit, because sometimes in order to get people to pay attention, you have to hit them with, basically the rubbish, people. The sad truth is your best content isn't necessarily the stuff that's going to do the best online. It's not, because people don't know what's good for them sometimes, including me, you know? So for me,
I used to struggle with that at the start, because I'd put out a video and it would be like, whenever I was just doing solely the Prove It guy, who was a persona. Yes, it is me, but there was a bit of it that, like, I would never have cursed, and I would have been very straight-laced with people, because that was the type of people I was working with. And I would put out a video that was really, like, to me, real poignant, real good learnings, real good teachings. You could improve your life watching it. And it might hit like 100 likes or something like that on Facebook. And then I might go to the gym, and when I'm just being myself, and do a wee after gym selfie talk where I'm like, fuck, leg day's the worst day ever. I hate everything, and my legs don't work. People go mental, and you're like, what the fuck? I just spent hours planning and structuring and scripting a video. So I'm glad that I've never been sucked into the, again, I'm happy to talk to myself in general. So doing a video that I know the only person's going to watch it is me.
You're happy.
I'm happy enough. Yeah.
Just to quickly throw in there, I completely feel you on that. My most viral video ever on TikTok was something that was filmed at the end of a video shoot, which we hadn't planned. I was like, here, come here, do this. No props, no prep, no script, no planning. 36 million views in a day. Crazy. And when I filmed it, I almost didn't upload it because I didn't think it was any good. And turns out now I'm looking back at it and go, actually, look, if I was scrolling down the For You page, I probably would have loved that as well. It was a really raw, rough around the edges, funny little skit. But it was just, you never know when you're going to strike upon gold and something like that. You never know. And you can't expect to. The thing was, I then expected that, if I just follow that formula and do it again, I'll get 36 million views. And that didn't happen, obviously. You know, at some point, it is kind of luck of the draw on some social apps. But look, you can learn something from everything.
Well, just whenever you, like, I just loved how you just casually were like, it got like 300 million views or whatever. What is your follow count at the minute?
On TikTok, actually, I'm curious. I'm wondering if during this time it might have jumped up another stat. I'm curious here. If it hasn't, I'm going to be devastated. What do you see? Are we at? Must be really close. We're right on the brink of 4.9 million.
That's incredible. When you think like 4.9 million people watch a magician from Northern Ireland,
it's absolutely crazy. Yeah, it is crazy. And listen, I'm not naive in the sense to think that 4.8 million followers is 4.8 million people that would know me and run up on the street. Like, there's definitely people in there that have just spotted me and hit follow it. Like, but it is still a crazy number. I never would have thought that it would have got that big so fast. But I think the thing is, if there's anyone watching that is starting social and maybe is starting from small numbers, just a bit of encouragement. 2 years ago, the biggest social following I had was on Instagram, and it was less than 10,000 followers. Like, it happens quickly if you are consistent and you put out stuff that you believe is good. It will happen. TikTok's a really good opportunity at the minute. Having said that, at the minute, if I had put the same amount of work into Instagram as I had TikTok, I probably would have a fairly big following there too. I just haven't, because the ROI was so much better on TikTok. I kind of convinced myself for a while in my head that, I don't know how to grow on Instagram, but that started to grow more since I've just started posting content on it, you know. Listen, it's very easy to overcomplicate it. I got bogged down by it, and I'm probably going to slag quite a lot of people here inadvertently, but my advice to anyone who's starting social is don't listen to, do listen to them, but don't listen first to all the social media gurus who teach you how to do it. Just look at people who are already in your niche doing what you want to do, and don't even listen to what they say. Look at what they're doing and learn from that. Because I wasted so many years learning the right hashtag formulas and the right apps to run in the back. If you're not putting out good stuff every single day, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I remember when we talked the last time we were up in Belfast, and I was asking you what your strategy was, and do you look at hashtags and all that sort of stuff? And you were like, I just post. I think at that stage you were doing 3 times a day.
Yeah, it was
like,
about 3
I post 3 times a day content. And when I talk to people, I use you as an example all the time, because I just love the fact that you are from a small. How small is it? You're from Bangor,
I'm actually I'm in Donaghadee now, is where I live, and it's even smaller again.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm
a wee
telling you.
tiny place. So anyone watching thinking they don't have the right people around them or whatever, like social media can reach anybody. But the fact that you make the content that you're good at and that you like doing, but again, we've
Mhm.
said it a few times on this podcast, you are you. If someone meets you now after watching this and chats to you, they're not gonna go, what, why are you be who are what's going on? Just not who you are. Like, you're who you are. That's who you are. Like,
Yeah.
I watched one of your lives on TikTok. Do you remember Ava, my wee niece? That was the
That's
first time I
right.
had experienced anything like that, and she was like, "Oh, do you want to see the magician?" Because she knows I do magic, and she was like,
Yeah.
"Go and see us wee magician." And then Joel comes on the screen, and I'm watching, going, "Yeah," and she's like, "He's amazing." And then you give me a shout out,
That's right.
and I thought she
That's
was
right.
going to explode. She's
Dude,
like,
let me tell you, the one place on the internet where I'm like about 10% more than myself in terms of energy is TikTok live streams, because you gotta keep the
"You
momentum
have
up,
to
or
be
you
for
just
life."
literally the people's attention spans are getting so much shorter, and you need to just constantly, I'm exhausted whenever I get off my
Yeah,
TikTok live streams now, and that's a good thing. Like, it's good to do something that's challenging and fun. It is fun at the same time, although it is weird. You're yapping at a camera in a room by yourself for hours
yeah,
on end. I did a 24 live one once and never again. That nearly killed me. But yeah, I'll tell you
brilliant.
though, the reason I think, and you'll find this probably with quite a lot of people on social, I can't speak for everyone, but at least the people I've met, most of the people who do really well are fairly similar in real life. And I think the reason is it's just too difficult to keep up a persona on camera if you're
Yeah,
putting so much of
hmm,
yourself out there. You would crack at some point and it would all come out. So it's better
yeah,
to just be yourself. But having said that, that doesn't mean that if you're really, really boring on camera, you should stay that way. You should work on your charisma and you should work on your
yeah,
presentation skills. All of those things can be learned and developed. Funny, I was looking back at videos for me at the start of this year compared to now, and even though I'm the same person on and off camera, things have developed. My
yeah.
charisma is better, and that's intentional. That's all learned. And the same thing for so many of my friends. Constantly, you'll know yourself. It's what should happen if you get a little bit better each
Yeah.
day.
Whenever I teach public speaking, or because of lockdown, I was teaching more people doing speaking to camera. But even
Mm-hmm.
before lockdown, when I had people in the room and I'd say, right, I'm going to do a live, I'm going to show you how I do a live. And they're like, all right, cool. And I've been just doing the conversation with them. And then I have a song that I put on, like, and it starts off with a haka. And like, they'd be
Mm.
looking at me like, what is going on here? And I'd be like, I'd be doing the haka. And then I'd be like pumped even before I do
Getting
a
into it,
podcast. And then by the time I hit the camera, I'm like, boom, 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 and I'm like
dude.
full energy, because you
That
lose it through the lens, I think, if you don't.
Listen, dude, you just touched on something which is so true, and it's only something I learned about halfway through lockdown, and I genuinely believe it's what made so it took me the same amount of time to get from 600,000 followers to a million as it did for me to get from 1 million to 3 million. Same amount of time. And the only difference, I believe, is the state that I put myself in before I jumped in
Yeah.
front of the camera. That is the content didn't change, nothing. It was me and the energy that I was in going in front of the, I learned that. I can't even remember who I learned it from, but whoever it was, it's an invaluable lesson. Right before you get into it, jiggle, move, physiology, get yourself in the
Yeah.
right place, and then go. Because if you're, there's no way for you to be at your absolute best if you haven't put yourself in the right state before you start. Same as
Yeah.
when you go on stage. On stage is a bit different, because there's an audience out there and you can almost
Yeah.
feel the adrenaline. Whereas when you're in front of
Yeah.
a camera, you're responsible for putting yourself in the right headspace.
Yeah. I imagine the best audience ever in front of me, like behind the camera, and the best person ever in that audience. And then I speak to that guy and I'd be like, this is who I want to get. By the end of this video, I want him to be as pumped as I am. So I actually ramp up more than I would just going on stage. Again, I think it's very important. A lot of people, they're too, hello, I'm here to do a live video and you should watch it. And everybody's like, good luck. Whereas even if I'm like, right, like just excited in some manner, people are like, why is he so excited? What's going on here? So
Yeah,
I think
dude,
that's very important.
it's so true.
Um,
And listen, it's more true than it sounds so woo woo and like energy and all that, but it is just true. It's that old thing of you put a pen between your teeth and smile for 20 seconds, you're going to feel happier, even if it is
yeah,
superficial. That works. So for me, it's just 3 claps, big yell, and then I usually will ask myself a question like, what's it going to feel like to, and then give myself an answer jump in, and that's usually me. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes, sometimes it takes 10 seconds.
Yeah, again, I'm the same. Just depends on the mood that I'm in just before I start. And I always say to myself, what's the question they're going to ask you after you do this video? And then I fill that gap as well. So then by the end of that, I know I've got everything covered, and I'm really like I'm really good at changing state in general. So even when I talk about it now, you notice that I get more energized and I get a bit more. And then I bring myself back. Like whenever I do that and I'm showing the guys live, and they see me do a live, and then as soon as the live's over, I'm just I'd be like, so you see what I did there?
There's so much to be learned from that, isn't there? Myself and my brother, before we film, we do the same thing. There's times where Ethan and I will go to film, and maybe it's me on one day, or maybe it's Ethan. But say I spot Ethan and he's not in a great mood, I'll say, dude, we're not turning on the camera. Take 30 minutes, get yourself on the right, because you can tell on the camera. You just can't.
It's
you can only fake
You're
it
doing
so
a
far.
job now.
Sorry?
You're doing a job now. It's not just about chatting to the camera and getting it done. It's a job you enjoy doing, so you want to be in the right frame of mind
100%.
to do it.
The only reason I learned this as well is I remember this is what it was that triggered it in my head, was if you're in a bad mood and you see someone with their shoulder slumped, they had their shoulder slumped before they were in a bad mood. And that is true. And I never had realized that. It was a big epiphany and realization to me. So it's a really useful thing to be able to do, whether not even just for camera, but just for anything.
Yeah, that's why I always tell people whenever they're working on mindset to work on your body as well. If I'm standing slunched over and talking like this, the physiology that I'm creating there is bad. Whereas, like, I'm sitting on a bench, but you would swear I'm in a comfortable, relaxed chair. But I'm sitting. There's nothing behind me here. I'm just sitting back straight because I think this active posture is better for me than sitting in a chair and slouching over. So I'm in an active position. And I love when I talk about it, because then even you're doing it at the minute. People go, how's my posture?
Yeah.
When you mention posture, people go,
it's funny. I caught myself on the other day. The reason I got a new desk is because I was having to, for stream purposes, hunch over the camera. And that's number one, that's not good for you just physically. But number two, I felt it harder to get into a good mood whenever I was slouched than whenever I was back. So I got this, you can't see it here, but a laptop stand which sits up. So whenever I'm working, I'm looking up, shoulders back, rather than over the laptop like this. Just little things, they make a big difference.
Yeah, I make all the guys, even when people were coming to me when I was solely working with anxiety, and when they tell me of their story of why they're anxious, I would say, cool, stand up for me. And they stand up all confused, and they're like, sit back down. They sit down and go, actually, no, stand up. And they stand back up. How do you feel now? Oh, I actually feel a wee bit better. And you're like, you just changed your physical state, that changes your mental state. I'm going to round it up here because I want to keep them about 45 minutes, and I would love to get you back.
Absolutely.
So I know we could keep going. So I just have one question that I like asking people in general. If you had a superpower or were a superhero, what would your power be?
Okay, super easy answer. I have my answer, and then I have what the correct answer should be. My answer would be teleportation, because I can't think of any situation which couldn't be solved by teleportation. You can just do everything. There's no need to have super strength. Go into bank, take money, get out of bank. Car nearly runs you over, teleport. You don't even need to fly, because you can just teleport into an airplane. Easy. Or just teleport to the place. Doesn't matter. So that's my answer. The best one I've heard is that the ultimate superpower would be able to change the probability of any outcome. So, probability of you winning the lottery, you could just change the probability of you winning, or a bullet coming towards you. You could change the probability of it hitting you. That would be the ultimate superpower, because then you could just do anything.
As a magician, I feel you already have that superpower, because you can do and create any reality that you want. So you're already halfway there, and you can already teleport things. So
well, this is true. This is true. If only all the skills you learned as a magician were actually useful, that would really help.
Yes. Joel, thank you very much. Where would people find you? What's the best way for people to find you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the best way to get in touch with me directly, by the way, absolutely feel free to reach out. Hit me up on Instagram. DM is the best place to get me. If you want to get my attention, let's say hit me with a rocket emoji first. Usually something that will grab my attention, because that way I don't need to fish through the other random thousands of 13-year-olds that are going to be there. But yeah, that's the best place to get me. If you want to watch my TikToks, I'm on TikTok. But I would advise genuinely anyone who's watching this, unless you're posting on TikTok, don't download the app because it's the most addictive thing of all time.
Good. But if you do download the app, how do they get you? What are you under? It's just Joel, or is it Joel?
If you search Joel, I believe I come up first.
Well, it's because you've got millions of followers.
Bet you there's someone that's gonna overtake me, and that's not gonna be true anymore. This is gonna age so badly. I'm gonna look back in 5 years and be devastated.
Joel, once again, thank you very much. A pleasure talking to you, and
of course, sir,
I look forward to getting you back on again.
Absolutely, mate. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, everyone else. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will speak to you again soon.